Yo, what's going on YouTube? And welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte. We are taking a look today at the Columbus Blue Jackets, the state of address for the Columbus Blue Jackets. We'll be doing that today in this video. If you guys like what we're doing here at Goal Line Hockey, want to see the latest news around the NHL, you guys know what to do. Make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and an even bigger subscribe down below. And let's take a look at the Columbus Blue Jackets. So, the Columbus Blue Jackets had an interesting trade deadline. Well, it goes back further than this. So, going into this season, right, there were a couple storylines for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Going into the season, Pierre-Luc Dubois would not suit up for the Blue Jackets. He didn't want to go to training camp. He didn't want to deal with, in particular, John Tortorella. And he signs an extension with the Blue Jackets during the beginning of the season. Now, there was obviously some situations between Tortorella and Dubois, which have since come out since then, but that relationship was obviously soured at some point. Whether it was last year, the year before that, or in training camp this year, that was an issue. And, and Dubois, in the beginning of the season, you could tell he didn't want to play with the Blue Jackets. He wanted to get out of that. He wasn't playing well on his shifts. He was getting benched in the third period by Torts, and you could tell that a trade was imminent. And the problem was Columbus maybe would lose value out of Dubois. Except, just north of the border, in Winnipeg, there was a player named Patrik Laine, who happened to be in the same situation with the Winnipeg Jets. Kevin Cheveldayoff and Jarmo Kekalainen said, hey, you know what? Let's make a deal. So we saw Jack Roslovic and Patrik Laine go to the Columbus Blue Jackets for centerman Pierre-Luc Dubois. And this was a big trade. Now, there's a storyline beyond even that with the trade, because Patrik Laine was the second overall pick in the 2016 NHL draft behind Austin Matthews. And you know who was third overall? That's right. The Columbus Blue Jackets selected Pierre-Luc Dubois. So we saw the second and third overall draft picks get swapped, which was funny because it was Roslovic and Laine, who was the second overall pick, getting traded for the third overall pick, which was more value, I guess, right? So that was a little bit weird, but I guess the value of a centerman shows up in that trade. So things don't work out so well in the beginning for Winnipeg because Dubois, obviously the 14-day quarantine rule in Canada, and then he comes in and he gets injured pretty much instantly. That first week or two with the Winnipeg Jets, he got injured. So now he was out for a month. He basically didn't play for the first month for the Winnipeg Jets, and it didn't look too good. And Columbus was like, hey, we got our guys. Roslovic's been waiting in Michigan to play with the Columbus Blue Jackets because he was hoping, that was his hometown. He was hoping he would, get traded there or sign there, whatever. So that worked out for Jack Roslovic. And then Patrik Laine came over. Now, going into it, we knew that there was some issues that Laine may not fit the system in Columbus. Kind of reminds me a lot of the Islanders system with Barry Trotz. You're not going to score as many goals under that system. And we've seen that Patrik Laine is now officially known as a player that doesn't make players around him better. We hear that get thrown around a lot, right? You heard about it back in the day with John Tavares with the Islanders. You've heard it thrown around with guys like Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews. They make players around them better. Patrik Laine really doesn't have that. Oh my God, excuse me, guys. He doesn't really seem to have that capability. And it's not a knock on Patrik Laine. He's just not that type of player. He's not a great two-way player. He loses puck battles along the boards coming back and results in goals. Bad back checker, not covering his player in the defensive zone. And we know John Tortorella does not respond well to that. And he was barking at the assistant coaches, and you could tell this was a tire-fire trade for both sides. Neither one was going to work. Now, the worst part is, neither of them are signed past this season. Now, they are restricted free agents, and it's going to make things very interesting this summer, both in Winnipeg and Columbus. But we're talking about Columbus today. Now, the good news is they're missing the playoffs this year, which is disappointing. Now, the good news is they didn't trade their first round pick this year, so we could all say, all right, that's okay. They're fine. But there's more to the story. John Tortorella, his contract ends this summer. Patrik Laine, his contract ends this summer. Who else's contract ends this summer? Oliver Bjorkstrand got an extension. Alex Texier, one of their young stud forwards, his contract ends. Mikko Lehtinen, who they picked up from Toronto, his deal ends. And that's pretty much it. So now comes the trade deadline. They're a seller. They're out of the playoff picture. Nashville has clearly taken that fourth spot in the Central. So Jarmo Kekalainen decides, hey, you know what? We're going to get value back for this season because we're not making the playoffs, so we need to trade some of our guys that have value on the open market. And with Nashville kind of pulling out, it actually made things better for Columbus. They were able to get more value for David Savard and Nick Foligno, and we'll get into that now. So Nick Foligno gets traded in a three-way trade with the Maple Leafs and the Sharks, and we see Nick Foligno go to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, Toronto gave up their first-round pick this year and a third? What was it, a fourth? A first and a fourth-round pick in this year's draft, and a fourth-round pick in next year's draft. Okay, so a first and a fourth for Foligno. Then David Savard goes to Tampa for a first and a third from the Tampa Bay Lightning. So now Columbus has picked up they did the best in terms of getting assets out of their two players. They got 2 first-round picks and a third and a fourth for 2 players, which is pretty solid for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Again, kind of the weaker market because we saw a lot of teams that were projected to be sellers like Nashville kind of turn around and say, hey, you know what? We like where we are. We're 4th place in the division. Doesn't look like Chicago is going to catch us. Doesn't look like Dallas is going to catch us. And Columbus is selling off, so we're going to stick with what we've got. So that may have raised the value for the guys for the Columbus Blue Jackets. So that's the good news. They now have 9 draft picks in this year's 2021 NHL draft, which is good news because they're going to be able to recoup some of the assets they lost over the last couple years trying to win the Stanley Cup. Now, next year, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So they have potentially 8 draft picks in 2022. They have 9 draft picks in this year's draft. And they have all their picks in the 2023, but that's still a far enough away. Maybe they win Connor Bedard in 2023, but that's still a long ways away. So there's more to the story. So now what does it look like going into the summer for the Blue Jackets? Because like I said, they have 9 draft picks this year. What are they going to do with those assets? Are they going to trade them to maybe make their team better next season? Or are they going to sort of retool on the fly, right? Because we've seen Max Domi. He hasn't really worked with the Blue Jackets. He's an unrestricted free agent next summer. So that is something to keep an eye on as well because Max Domi will be potentially out. He has not done well with the Blue Jackets this season. Do they keep Jack Roslovic past next season? Let's take a look. Who else is here? Seth Jones. His contract ends at the end of next season. Gabriel Carlson, and their 2 goaltenders, Merzlikins and Korpisalo. You have to assume this summer they may decide, to let one of those guys go. Kind of like what we saw the Ducks do back in the day with John Gibson and Freddie Anderson. Trade one of them a year out from free agency. Let the next team deal with, signing them or extending them or whatever and take that off your hands. So that may be something we see the Columbus Blue Jackets do this summer. So what my projections are for the Columbus Blue Jackets. If I'm Jarmo Kekalainen, armchair GM, okay, so what are we going to do first? John Tortorella is going to go. Because obviously things have not worked out under Torts. I like Tortorella as a coach overall. I like what he's done with Team USA in the past. But that magic from Tortorella has worn off. And it seems like I like the way he controls things. But in today's hockey climate, it just doesn't seem like he's been able to adapt that to work. We've seen coaches like Barry Trotz, who is a very fairly difficult coach to deal with by some people, especially with bringing in prospects and stuff like Kiefer Bellows. We've seen that with the Islanders. But he's well respected in the room. There's a fine line you're able to get with, especially with today's society, which I have my own issues with. But John Tortorella just has not been able to adapt. He's always done things his way, and he's very stubborn with that. And I think that's going to come to his own detriment this summer. And I think we're going to see the Blue Jackets let him go this summer. They may even let Patrick Laine go this summer. Whether that's an offer sheet, maybe from Montreal or some other team, maybe Arizona, because the Coyotes may look to make a move. we may see something come down the line here for Columbus where they decide to either trade Patrick Laine this summer or they let someone take an offer sheet on him and they accept the first and second round pick or first, second, 2 seconds, whatever it is, for Patrick Laine and call it a day and say, all right, that was a draw. That was not going to work. Whatever. We lose that value for Laine, but at least we'll get something for him, right? On the other side, you've now got a situation where you've got to figure out what are you going to do with Max Domi because you don't think you're going to re-sign him. So maybe you trade Domi out this summer. You trade Jonas Korpisalo or Merzlikins this summer as well. So you could get more value than you would, say, next trade deadline in 2022 for 2 very good young goaltenders. That would be the smart move. Their value is going to be high this offseason because of the potential. So teams like Edmonton, Chicago, Boston, Buffalo, those teams will keep their eye on these goaltenders. And that may be something that we see start to develop a little bit as well. So, and depending on how the goaltending market is with Chris Driedger and stuff like that, the teams that miss out on Driedger this summer will likely take a look at a guy like Korpisalo or Merzlikins after the Seattle expansion. Now, that's another thing. Will the Columbus Blue Jackets lose one of Merzlikins or Korpisalo to the expansion draft this summer? And that could prove to be a problem for Kekalainen and his plans this summer. And that's really it. I mean, you look at the only guys that really have term for this Blue Jackets team, it's 2 guys in particular. Oliver Bjorkstrand and Cam Atkinson. And everybody else has a 2-year deal with the Blue Jackets. So the Blue Jackets are in a weird spot where, they're a team that really doesn't look like they're in the best spot. Now, the good news is they have the draft picks, which is huge. But I think we could see them continue this retool. They're going to get a new coach. They're going to move out Patrick Laine. I think they're going to move out guys like Max Domi, guys like Elvis Merzlikins. Don't be surprised if they maybe trade a guy like Elvis Merzlikins for, say, another forward, because they're going to have a lot of guys that they could protect, right? Because let's say, okay, so you've got to protect Cam Atkinson, Max Domi, Oliver Bjorkstrand, Jack Roslovic, and I think that's it. So that's 4 guys that you have to protect. And then I think you could protect 4 defensemen. So Seth Jones, Gavrikov. Wow. Werenski. So I guess they have to protect Nyquist as well. So, yeah, this is a weird spot for the Blue Jackets. They may make trades here and say, hey, listen, do you need a goal? If you need a goaltender and say maybe Buffalo, right? If they don't feel comfortable with Linus Ullmark, they say, hey, listen, we like Linus, if you feel confident that the Seattle Kraken won't take Linus Ullmark, what if we give you Elvis Merzlikins so we don't lose him to the expansion draft, but we're going to take, say, a forward that we know that we could protect, and we make that deal work? Could we see Columbus maybe do that? Or maybe a team that, wants a forward, they trade Max Domi or Laine to a team that wants to protect the forward. Maybe we see that happen. Or maybe Columbus does the unthinkable. Maybe they leave Patrick Laine unprotected for Seattle, but the catch is, because he's a restricted free agent this summer, he wants to make a lot of money. There's the possibility that Seattle has to give and pony up a lot of money to Laine this summer, and maybe they decide, you know what, I don't want to touch Laine with a 10-foot pole. So this is going to be an interesting summer for Columbus, especially with the expansion draft and with everything that's gone on, the flat salary. Columbus is primed to make some moves this summer, and I think it's going to be quite interesting. So it could be a bad summer for the Blue Jackets. It could be a good summer, but Jarmo Kekalainen, like we saw a couple years back when he went that big game hunting, bringing in Matt Duchene, Ryan Dzingel, and a couple of those other guys, this is kind of a big summer for the Blue Jackets once again, really to determine the direction of this franchise for the next couple years. Because like I said, next summer, some big names are going to be free agents. Seth Jones and Zach Werenski are pretty important ones. Merzlikins, Korpisalo, Gabe Carlson, Max Domi, and Jack Roslovic. Those seem to be the big ones. So guys, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think the Columbus Blue Jackets should do this summer. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.